Birgitta, welcome to the Blossom Experiment podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Camille. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you so much for being here. I think that you can just start us and kick us off with telling us a little bit about yourself and telling us a little bit about your story and how you came into being the unique human that you are today.
Well, aren't we all unique?
Yes, exactly.
I am. Let me start off with what I am and then dive into my story. So, I am what you call a soul empowerment coach. So, I help people empower themselves back to the grid of their own existence because we deviate so much away from our own awareness and the truth of who we are. And we're so dumbed down by society that we have to find a way back to ourselves, about our authentic nature. And people then ask me, well, what does it mean to be authentic? Well, how about just being yourself? It's not about slapping all the labels on your mind, but just being true to yourself, true to your own nature. Because it doesn't matter, Camille. Honestly, it doesn't matter what others think of you. It's about what you think of you and how you feel about yourself. So that's really important. And it's really returning from that state of disempowerment to the returning to the I am power within you. Second, I am also a divine channel. So I channel the many light beings all over the place. That's why I call myself a bit of a bike messenger between the here and there because I'm Dutch. And we Dutch like to ride our bikes. So I work with many of the archangels, the ascended masters, the galactics, you name them. And the other thing that I am is a light language healer. So people are like, what is that? And it's very much up and coming. I think it's a bit more well known in the US than here in the UK. But I always say to people, it doesn't matter if you don't understand it because it's very ancient and it's often galactic language and your mind doesn't understand it. I say, yes, it does sound a little bit like minion language. And you're like, what the heck is she saying? What is that? But your soul, your soul understands the light and encoding just beautifully. And that's what it's all about. It's about healing. And it works. I think it's very empowering. I've seen people change their lives. But what works for one doesn't necessarily have to work for another.
Hmm.
So that's a little bit about what I do.
Wow.
And
It's very, very different. And yeah, I wonder how you got there. What were the experiences in your life that brought you there?
well, it was a bit of a roller coaster ride, Camille. I
Mm-hmm.
was born in 1974, so I'm a bit of a 70s, 80s kid. And yeah, my childhood was fine until about 10 years old. Then it became a very mixed bag of trauma that I didn't heal.
Mm.
So I'll put it in a nutshell because if I don't, we're going to sit here after 30 minutes still. so, no, but at the age of 10, I was abused by a friend of the family because
Wow.
we were staying with my dad's business partner at the time for several months before we moved into another property in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And I didn't say anything to my parents because I didn't even understand. And the 1980s were a very different era to the times that we live in now. And so when we moved back to Holland at the age of 14, we just returned. My dad passed away from cardiac arrest. He already had coronary heart disease, didn't want to take his medication, thought he could cure himself. And he meditated a lot, but he did not clear his own trauma. And he suffered a lot of trauma, especially in his childhood as well, because at the age of 15, he was sent to a seminary. And this must have been, yeah, in the 1950s. And he was abused there. And his parents were also very, very strict. So I don't think he ever healed that part of him. And I think everything just accumulated throughout his life and just hit on his heart. And So that was really hard at the age of 14. And I was a pro at not eating at school. I think that was the start of that kind of starving myself, which I don't do anymore. But yeah, it knocked the wind out of my sails, and I just couldn't cope. Plus, I was pretty insecure at school as well, and I think that was because of the abuse that I suffered in Malaysia. And so I had a fear of teenage boys, a real big fear. And if I needed to go to a classroom and there was a guy in the hallway, and I would just try and find another way to my classroom. That's how bad it was. And I just
Mm.
hated the way I looked because I was so skinny. Plus, I got bullied. And so, fast forward to about 16, and my mom put me on this modeling course, which at the time was very, very different. It was really all about, for me, walking with confidence. And I couldn't do that because I just had accumulated all the trauma and I was carrying it like the weight of the world on my shoulders, like Atlas. And that's why I was like a hunchback of Notre Dame. So that's how I walked around.
Mm.
And no, I mean, even then, on the modeling, when I took the modeling course, I was picked out to be a the main model at a hair show. And the hairdresser chopped my hair off from here to a pixie cut.
Oh my
And
god, I would die.
yeah, pretty much. That's how I felt. I felt horrified. But it wasn't like it could magically grow back. So I just had to walk around with it, but it didn't do it. Dented my self confidence even more. And so from there, even though after I finished high school, I tried my hand at the modeling. It was a very fickle world, very superficial, much like a cattle market. I never really worked. I was always compared to like Linda Evangelista, Brooke Shields, or Nikki Taylor. And yeah, I mean, even in the modeling industry, I got assaulted actually in New York. And even then, it was like I potted everything up. And
Mm-hmm.
the way that it worked for me is like, the only thing that I could control was starving myself and working like a maniac because I had so many different jobs, and that's just what kept me going, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
That's really what kept me going. So it didn't matter where you put me in the world. I was like a little chameleon. I would always work. But because I carried all that trauma with me, I created more trauma in my life. And so I rolled into dysfunctional relationships. And then in 2009 is kind of when I hit rock bottom. It wasn't really the first time, but it was really, really harsh because my ex was a crack addict and I didn't know that. Yeah,
Wow.
he lived with me from the US. He's doing really well now, by the way. He
I'm
is.
glad.
Yeah, but it's not that. What I will say is, no matter who comes across our path, everyone is a teacher. Everyone is a reflection of something that we need to, well, often heal. So these things surface. And he was, as I always say, he was an amazing reflection to my then very naive spirit. And I had to learn a lot. And I mean, gosh, I'd never seen someone high on crack like that. Trust me, I mean, back in, I think it was 2000 when my stepdad passed away, I had my stint with drugs. I could have killed myself because I took maybe 6 to 9 E's one night because it was just, I couldn't cope. And I suffered memory loss. So, but I'm still here. And so when that happened, and he got involved with the Dutch Crips. And then what happened was that my mom got me out of Holland, and I think it was in the space of 3 or 4 days, she got me out. I went back to the UK. I helped the police in Holland to track down my ex. They deported him back to the US. And
Wow.
even then in Holland, bless his heart, he wanted to get better and he wanted to be in a clinic, but they wouldn't accept him because he didn't have a Dutch social, which is kind of ridiculous. It's a catch-22 situation. And so he got deported back, and then the leader of the Crips is now behind bars in Holland. He called me up and he threatened to find me and kill me. And he's like, if I ever find your ex, you'll never find him because you'll find him somewhere dead in a ditch.
Wow.
Yeah. So that when that happened, I just kind of lost it, even though it was in a different country, and I just downed a whole box of ibuprofens, and all that did for me was get a good night's sleep. I got up and I thought, this is not the way forward. So then my mom said to me, Birgitta, go and see a counselor. I did. Didn't work for me because all she said to me was, yeah, you're strong enough. You'll be fine. And I remember that to this day. She's sitting there on the couch opposite me. And I left thinking, what is this? So then for me, what worked for me is I had to figure it out. And I rolled into Reiki. And so from there, and
Mm.
that was actually my saving grace. That helped me so much. And from there on, I studied so many different other healing modalities, from holistic nutrition, and becoming a meditation teacher, relaxation therapies. Oh, I got EFT, emotional freedom technique,
Mm.
which I really love. It's very, very simple because all you do is you tap the emotions out of the traumatic experience, or the trigger, so to speak, so that you can just speak about the experience without having the emotions attached to it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh my God, that's such an intense story. So many, like, just so much intensity. My first question for you is, because you have this connection to the angels and you're a messenger and things like that, I would love to know if you ever asked them why you had such an intense experience. And it's also interesting to me how the inner energy of abuse kind of passed on from your father to you, and it's kind of like an ancestral trauma, that had to be
It is.
released.
Yeah.
But I'm just like really curious if you've ever asked them, why was my life like this?
Yeah, I did. I did. I did. And that was several years later when I went through another very traumatic experience when I learned to channel. And again, I mean, this person in Florida is doing very well now. Totally turned his life around. And I guess he always says, you know what? You allowed me to grow. Well, actually, not in that instance, because when we are with someone, it's often that we want to be their savior. We want to save them. We want to be the hero. And we can't do that because we have to allow them to walk their own journey as much as we have to walk our own journey, because we
Mm-hmm.
stump their growth, but we also stump our own growth. So yes, in 2006, 2015, 16, that's when I learned to channel, because
Mm.
I did another healing session walking through the Akashic record healing. So healing my past lives with this individual and learning more about other past lives that had kept me in these karmic ties, so to speak. And my then mentor, Alania Starhawk, had a workshop on divine, how to become a divine channel. And she did this meditation. And everyone was like, when they came back out of that meditation, they were like, oh my God, I got messages and I saw the archangels, I saw this and this master, blah, blah, blah. I saw colors. Well, when she counted to 3, I was gone. She counted back from 3 to 1. I came back in the room. I saw nothing, nada, niente. I was really upset. So I was sitting there and I was wiping the tears with my sleeve. And she then said to all of us, she said, this is how I started. She's like, I just had a pad and a pen, and I asked my guides or the divine, she's like, please Please give me a message because I'm ready to receive. That's all she did. So that's exactly what I did when I went back home. And it just started to flow. But I think I was so far out of my mind. I was so exasperated that I wasn't even thinking, and it just flowed. And you're right, I did start to ask many questions, like why is this happening to me? But when I asked these questions, sometimes they came back in riddles, but they did say to me, because this is your journey. Your journey is to walk the road less traveled so that in turn you can inspire others. And when I read that, I thought, well, that's great. What am I supposed to do with that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, people often say, well, I didn't ask for these experiences, but yes, you did. Well, and they were absolutely, they were like, but Birgitta, you asked for all of these experiences. And the experiences, which I now understand, experiences are really not meant to bring you down. They're meant to make you understand yourself and more about life. It's about elevating your consciousness, right? Expanding your consciousness and returning to that love for yourself. Because once you learn to forgive any parties or anything that's happened in your life, forgive yourself, but also forgive others, you release so much.
That's so
And
beautiful.
And rather than remaining in that victimhood where many people stay and they love to blame other people, point the fingers, they say, do not deflect, but reflect and learn to rise above. And they always give this silly example with the ego, right? Different perspective. Everything in life you can view from a different perspective, but we're so ingrained with within this society in living in a certain way that we often get lost. We really get lost. And that's why so many people suffer. And because we are energetic beings of the divine, we are energy. So we are manifestors, we are creators, and we sometimes don't even realize that. So if we speak negative to ourselves, or we say we can't do this, or we want something, but it's more of the negative that comes into effect, then we are not going to achieve what we set out to achieve, because our mind is the most powerful tool that we have. And I think we need to educate people into understanding that they are energy, they are manifestors, they are creators. And that's one of the reasons that why we're here. It's another thing that I ask, well, why are we here? Well, it's to learn to return to a love for ourselves and each other, but also to learn how to manipulate the energies in favor, in favor, how do you put that? In favor of our way, so to speak.
Yeah. In favor of our souls, in favor of,
Yes.
because there's a, it's really interesting the way that you're explaining it, because personally I see the world as we can either show up as our conditioned selves or we can show up as our authentic selves. And when we show up as our authentic selves, we show up as our magnetic, most highest, most aligned, most intuitive, most loving versions of ourselves. And then our conditioned selves, it's our fear-based, lack-based, limiting beliefs, trauma, shadows, parts of ourselves, which is really important for us to deep into so we can actually expand and extend ourselves into the authentic self. But
Absolutely.
what I really love about this is that when you, the thing that you were talking about, like the way that we see things, you can see a challenge from the perspective of your authentic self and see this as, right, this is a way for me to learn and to expand, and this is working out in my favor, versus this is a challenge that if I'm seeing this from my conditioned self, why is it always hard with me? Everything works, like everything is against me, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
So I all and I one day I had this realization that the way that you become lucky like this lucky, like in TikTok, that there's this thing of like the lucky girl syndrome. The way that you become lucky is basically seen as if everything is working out on your favor. And I think that this is very much the way of the authentic self, but not in a way that you're spiritually bypassing things, because you're still feeling the emotions and processing them, but it's in a way of, for example, you got rejected from a job, you got rejected from a person, you're not getting an apartment like we were talking before. It's this idea of, I know that this, I don't know how, but I just know that this is working out for me, and I'm going to just choose to believe in it. And I think that the challenging part is to actually choose the positive belief instead of the negative, because the brain is so wired to the negative. So I wonder how you trained yourself to be in your authentic self, or however you call it, your soul, your, I don't know, highest self, I don't know, higher self,
I'm still climbing
instead
the
of,
ladder, you know?
yeah, but tell us a little bit of the steps. No one is perfect. No one is perfect.
No,
I always say,
I'm not perfect.
I always say this. Yeah.
Um, so I'm trying to think how to word this. When you what there's one when you were talking about the manifesting and putting the seeds in your head, it's it's already thinking that you've reached your end goal. That's what you need to keep in your mind. When you've reached that end goal, and then you write the steps in between of how you need to achieve that. But you just need to keep that in your head. And I learned that actually through a course with Mike Dooley. He's very, very good in
Mm.
manifesting. So, but I mean, for me, I like. Do you think I'm my complete authentic self? I mean, I'm still learning. It's going to take me lifetime still.
Yeah.
But I am the most authentic version I am now, and still becoming, because every day we are expanding, every day we are growing. And it's really about, you're right, it's really about doing the work. And that's where this duality comes in. And duality is really important, because without duality, we could not evolve. So
Mm.
without good or bad, night and day, you name it, all the opposites, we could not evolve. So it's really, really important.
I would love to ask you more questions about the manifestation. So
Yeah.
you said it's a dually. I don't. What is that?
Mike Dooley, he's I think he is with Hay House, and
Ah, okay.
he he's got amazing courses. He does them online. He often works with David G, and I like David G because of his meditations. And this is like a really simple step, especially when it comes to meditation. People can be very lazy. So I say, well, listen to David G, J-I at the end. And he has meditations on overcoming fear, your anxiety, negative belief systems, the opening up of your divine self, asking the universe. And all you need to do is plug in your earphones, choose one of his videos. They're like 15 to 20 minutes, and follow the instructions. And on
Okay.
that's a start, and you'll feel a lot better. You'll start the day off just right.
And what does it mean to have a dually? Is it like like a like a teacher, or that you
So Mike,
have?
no, so wait, Mike Dooley is a teacher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he talks
Okay.
just a lot about creating a manifestation.
Okay.
Manifest,
And what are
manifest.
some of the top, I don't know, three or whatever number it is, things that you would tell someone that's getting into manifestation and they want to manifest a certain aspect of their lives to be different?
I always need to, because there's a glitch in that system. If you want to
Mm,
manifest, but you are still walking around with unhealed wounds within, that can cause a kink in the cable, because your energy is off. And so the energy needs to flow again so you can manifest, but you also need to heal yourself. And that's really important. I don't care, Camille, how people heal themselves. It's whatever agrees with their spirit, whatever they feel comfortable with. And so if they come to me and they would like light language, that's great. But if they want to go see a shrink or a counselor, it doesn't matter, whatever works for them. But it's important to heal ourselves in order for us to move forward and, be abundant in all ways. And if things go wrong, then you have to ask yourself, what is it that I need to work on? What is it that I need to heal in order to move forward in my life?
I totally agree. So let's say that the first step would be for people to get on this process, on this journey of doing the quote unquote inner work, processing their emotions, processing their traumas, and things like that. So once they are already, if they are already doing this, or once they are already doing that, because that is an endless, it's forever in your life job, quote unquote, so that's an
Mhm.
endless kind of background that's always there. So once that process is already in motion, what are some of the other things that people could start doing?
So for me, I like to channel or I like to journal. That's
mm,
what helps me a lot to move forward. Or for me also, I like to listen to 432 hertz meditations because that recenters me, that rebalances me. It gives me clarity. It gives me clarity. Yeah. Uh, and other stuff that works for me is, running or going to the gym to do
mm.
little things. But you have to do the work. You have to get off that couch. Nothing happens by magic. And even when you go and see whatever type of healer, remember that they are just a tool in the toolbox. You will still need to do the work.
And how do you, that's really interesting because you talked about like channeling and manifestation, for example. So let's say we are you.
No.
And for example, with your, that's a great example because off air we were talking about the you're leaving the UK and you're going to Spain, and then you know that it's Spain and you have this intention of settling down there at least for some time being, and you are looking for a place for you to stay. So you are manifesting, you're co-creating this reality in which you have an apartment to live there. So how do you, what process do you follow with your channel to actually arrive there? Or even when you knew that you wanted to go to Spain, did you receive that as a message, or did you just felt it in your body? How was that? How is that process for you?
So it's kind of like you wanting to go to France. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, so this year has been tough, but I understand my experiences. So I don't remain sitting in that corner. Well, I never really have because I turn every challenge into an opportunity. Now, as cliche as that sounds, you really have to look at the experience and see what it is teaching you. So I have a corporate job in oil and gas standardization, and I sometimes work 60 hours, sometimes a little less, sometimes a bit more. And then I have my
Well,
spiritual work, and that was just, it was too much for me. And I nearly burned out in February, March time, and then again just over a week ago. And I thought to myself, what am I doing? And trust me, I have spoken to my company about this. And I thought to myself, what is this telling me? What am I doing with my life? Why am I allowing myself to be lived rather than actually living my life and living my passions? There's a big difference. And I thought to myself, I don't want to be a rat stuck in this sewer system. I honestly
mm,
don't. Why do we do that to ourselves? Because we have to pay our bills. I mean, that is the matrix, as I call it. That is the
mm-hmm.
creative matrix that we live in. And is that why we're here? No. And I thought to myself, Birgitta, what are you doing? And then it hit me. It really hit me. It just poof like a thunderbolt. And it was just like a message, Brigitta, just go, just do it now. And so I put everything in motion. I did all my research. I got my social security for Spain. And I know exactly when I want to go. So I've already got that in my head. And that's why I am not really freaking out, because I know I've set that goal, that intention of what I want and when I need to be there. And that's when I can also finish writing my second book. And don't think I'm going to be working 60 hours a week again. No, I will not do that. Because let's face it, Camille, life is too short. We are never guaranteed tomorrow. And I do not want to live with the could haves, the would haves, the what ifs, because why? And some people, when they reach 65 or 70, they look back and they're like, well, what if I'd done that? Or I could have done that. And then some people will say, yeah, but I don't have the money for that. I can't do this. Yes, you can. If you put your mind to it, you can achieve anything that you want. The only thing I will say, well, do not be like an Icarus and fly too close to the sun. But basically, you can achieve anything that you want. And I think Joe Dispenza, I love him because he talks very much about the mind and how we are energy. I really think he's amazing. And I also, the quote in What the Bleep Do We Know,
Mm.
about, change your thinking, change your life. And people are like, yeah, but it's not that simple. No, but you have to start somewhere. Everything is a mindset. When we talk about 3D to 5D, what do you think that is? It's not some hocus pocus. It's about shifting our mindset from that 3D, that total masculine, that total material, the egotistical everything, to 5D, which is a more balanced masculine with the feminine, the spiritual, and living more in harmony with ourselves and those around us, because we're so ego driven. It's ridiculous. It's like we're competing against one another. Why are we doing that? Yeah, because we're so conditioned within us. We're like these race horses. That's what I always compare ourselves to, or companies. And it's like, why are you competing with one another when you could work together so much better and achieve so much more? And that's the same for humanity. We could achieve so much more together rather than thinking that we are separate and doing everything individually.
I totally agree. And I think that when we talk about the Joe Dispenza, like, if you change your energy, you change your life. Like, whenever I hear it, like, I have this sentence so much in my brain constantly. And one thing that I will say for anyone who thinks that, for example, I don't have money to do this now, and it's like, yes, you don't have money to do this now, but this doesn't mean that you will never have the money to do it. So I always like to think to myself, I will be able to achieve X. It doesn't have to be now. It doesn't have to be in 2 years. It can be in freaking 30 years. But if I put my mind to it and I really take like small actions in the real world and in the real world, quote unquote, like the physical world and the spiritual world, and in my mindset, to change the way that I feel about myself, the way that I feel, to change the way that I feel about my goal, about my mindset, and everything around it, it will happen. I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know if it's going to look like the same way that I have it in my head, but it will happen in a way or another. And I have seen it happen in my own life, in several different ways. And granted, it wasn't exactly the way that my mind thought it would, but I am sure it was the exact way that my soul wanted it to be, because it was in the highest alignment for me. And I think that if you're already someone that's going with this mindset of, no, it's useless, it's too hard, then it will be too hard. And of course it's not going to be easy, and of course it is going to be uncomfortable, but the moment that you put that in your mind, you're going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy and you're going to make it harder than it actually has to. I actually have this like really funny, like weird story because I've been traveling for over 2 years. And I remember that at some point I was in between transitioning from Portugal to Greece, and I was passing by the UK, and I was by myself with, I don't know, four different luggages, like really, really heavy. And I was traveling from like the airport to the train station to the countryside of the UK, back to London. And I remember before I left, while I was in Portugal, I thought to myself, oh my God, this is going to be so painful to travel with so many luggages and just me by myself. And then I reframed it and I was like, no, this is going to be easy. I don't know how, but the universe is going to make it easy. And it was so interesting to see how many people in the UK, like a place where people don't really talk to people that much, they would stop in the middle of the train station and help me. They would stop in the middle of the train and help me. And then people would give me lifts with cars, so I never had to carry stuff around. So it was so much easier than, like, I remember that I saw this staircase out of nowhere. A person was, I was in Italy, there was this staircase. I was like with so many luggages, and this guy was like, do you want help to take them upstairs? I was like, yes, please, sure. Then he helped me and left. He wasn't charging me, he wasn't this like pickpocket or anything. He was just there and helping me because I was in this vibration of people are going to help me, I'm going to be helped, I deserve to be helped, and it's going to be easy. And this is such a small aspect of life that can be extrapolated to other aspects of our lives if we have the belief, and every cell in our being believes that. So I think that is really an important thing to reiterate for anyone who's listening, because it starts with your mind, it starts with your energy. It doesn't, there's no other way.
Correct. If you want to change the world, you've got to start with yourself. Now, the one thing I will say is when you put it out there, when you have that, let's say, that end goal in your head of where you want to go, don't control it, but allow it to,
Mm.
because the universe is trying to help you. And if you have this incessant need to hold on, it's like, but the universe is like, I can't flow because you're not flowing.
Mm.
Which is very,
Yeah.
very true. And I've encountered that as well. But you've given a very good example. My mom always asks for the angels for a parking place
Mm.
where it's full, and boom, she has a parking space.
Hmm. Exactly.
But you are
Yeah.
right when it comes to energy, what you vibe out. So if for you with your suitcases, what you vibe out, that energy, right? That frequency that just vibrates out. And so you got that help.
Yeah, and that is like a little story, but I think it's so, what I love about these like little stories, and when you're aware of, oh wow, this happened to me, you see that you can translate that to another area in your life, in the area that you really want more help, or in the area that you really wanted to be different. So I think that's really important. And I think that someone like you who have so much connection with the angels and your higher self or your intuition, I wonder if that is a tool that you use often to create something in your life, or to receive more guidance, to receive more help. How is that relationship?
I do ask them that. What they've taught me is patience and
Mm.
divine timing. I'm like, yeah, you know, but I've learned that. I have really learned that, because sometimes when they say, when you plant a seed, I sound so cliche. When you plant a seed, you have to nurture it and you have to be patient. And so rather than doing things on the fly, unless it's really meant to be, then just take your time. It's okay if it takes you a little longer to get there, but you've got that in your head, so you know you will get there. And it's that
Mm.
belief and that trust and having that faith. Because we forget that the universe, I mean, we are the universe as much as the universe, is us. We are all one. We are all connected. And I have seen that from far above. It's quite magnificent when I saw that, all these little lights. Because I always say, I mean, we're human. And this is what I always say, when we split the words up, we get UHUE, which means light. And then man, we are light man. We are walking light man. So when I saw this several years ago from really far above in space, I just saw all these, I saw the whole connection, and it was quite, I thought that was really, really amazing. And that's why they say, we are one with everything, as everything is one with us.
Yeah. I read this quote once from the Course in Miracles that I'm
Mhm.
paraphrasing here, but it's something in the lines of those who are certain of the outcome, they can afford to wait and wait without anxiety. So it's almost as if you're so certain that that will happen that you don't have to be anxious about it, because you already know that's going to happen. So if you already know it's going to happen, then you don't have to have you have to have no anxiety, because you're so certain of it. And I love that, because I think that it's so challenging for us to be in the unknown, and to have the patience, and to surrender, and to let go of control. And I would love for you to either share some of the messages that you've heard about how to cultivate more patience, or how to visualize the unknown in a different way, to help people just let go of control a little bit more.
Then you're talking about being stuck in the ego, really, aren't you? So
Mm,
it's really all about embracing ourselves, accepting ourselves, and loving ourselves as we are. We are continuously learning, we're continuously evolving, and there is absolutely no right or wrong in how you decide to live your life. And again, I mean, Camille, it's all about shifting your mindset. That's all I can say, and letting go of our ego, letting go of that control, letting go of our fear, because fear is an illusion. I mean, they've peppered that into me, especially Descended Master Saint Germain. It's an illusion. Okay, fear is the beta blocker within your mind. It is it's the Darth Vader to your Jedi. It's the Joker to your peeing in your pants Batman. Fear is an illusion. It's a criminal that you've allowed to take residence. That you've allowed to take up residence in your head. But we need to let go of that fear, because that's what's stopping us. That's that control. We've got, when we carry when we, all our experiences that are unhealed, unalchemized, we put them in the archives of our minds, and it becomes overloaded, of course. And every time we go through something, oh, the archives in our minds go, oh, that's associated with that. Oh, no, no, can't do that, can't do that. So it's all about healing your mind, healing your mind, and unconditioning the conditioned, because we've draped ourselves with so many layers of conditioning. We can't even see ourselves. We can't see left or right. And so that's why it's so, so important to let everything go, and to just flow, and to just be, and live in the moment. Do not live in the past or in the future, but live in the now, to create in the now for better tomorrows.
I love that. And one thing that I constantly think about, I don't know if you've ever thought about that, but what is the balance between the manifestation and the creation, the conscious, let's call it like the conscious manifestation, the conscious creation,
Mhm.
versus the surrendered creation, in the sense of letting go of all expectations and just allowing yourself to be guided, instead of making the decisions with the mind of like, I think that, moving to Spain would make me really happy, but then the universe is like, no, you have to go to Portugal or something like that.
What
So
happens?
I don't know if you've ever thought about that, like the balance between those two, and if you've ever received a message about that, or I don't know.
No, I mean not really, but I will say this to you. Do fish swim upstream? Oh no, wait, unless you're a salmon. A salmon does, yes. But my point is, so if for whatever reason I had to go somewhere else and I would be guided to go somewhere else, then I would just go with the flow. For me, however, I know where I'm supposed to be. I don't know the place yet because I'm not controlling that. When I see it, I will know it. And that's just the way it's going to be. So it's not like for me, I'm focused on one place alone. No. Whatever is going to be out there for me will be ready when it's my time to go. That's all.
Yeah.
And I think it's
Yeah.
very, and that's letting go of that control. So you are more aware, of course, but it's letting go of that control and just allowing for things to come in rather than being, walking like through life like a horse with blinkers.
Yeah, so obsessed with one outcome, so attached to one outcome. Yeah, that's very much the way that I live my life. I feel like I always try to find a balance between me having an intention and having the free will to choose whatever I want, but at the same time being really aware of not forcing something, and just being aware of signs and other possibilities
Yeah.
that might be better for me.
So there's one, I forgot to mention that. So for me, what works for me is I always catch my thoughts when I find 5 pence, and I always find money. Always. I always find
Hmm.
coins. And now I know to catch my thoughts and exactly what I'm thinking. It's like, oh, you mean that? Okay, that's great. I understand it now. So
Hmm.
that works for me. For some people, it's like a
Mm.
sign from heaven. But for me, it's like they've made me aware. It's like, Birgitta, catch your thoughts.
Mm. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because my next set of questions, I really wanted to talk to you a little bit about the channeling
Mhm.
experience and things like that. Because I think that everyone has a connection with their intuition, with the divine. I think we just were really shut off of it. We weren't taught how to use it, how to connect with it. And I think there's something that really interplays in this, is learning how to differentiate your fear, your anxiety, and your ego from your intuition. And I think it's also then a level of trusting. Like, do I trust what I heard? Do I trust what I saw? Do I trust what I feel in my body? So, as you were talking about the coins, for example, I have a way that I connect with, the way that for me the universe shows themselves, the universe or my whatever, my angels, my intuition, they show themselves is through the sign of a moon, like a half moon. Whenever I see it, and I have seen it constantly nowadays, like recently, whenever I see it, I know that the universe is telling me you're on the right path. We're here, you're being guided, you're being supported. Just trust. Like, I just know that it is that, because I just know it. And I know that people are like, but how do you know it? I don't know. The science didn't prove it, but I just know it. But and I know it because I did some meditations on it, and eventually it led to being like, this is the way that I communicate with it. So I would love for us to talk a little bit about that, how to connect your angels, to your
Mhm.
guides, to your
Yeah.
intuition, and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, as I said before, if you really want to connect, I mean, there are different ways to connect. Whether you do it through meditation, or breathing exercises. The one that works really well, as I said, 432 hertz meditations, but then you have to do the breathing where you get to that 0 point where you breathe in from your root chakra all the way up to your crown chakra, for like the count of 4, and then hold it for 4 and breathe out for 4 and then hold it for 4 again. And then when you've got that, then at a later stage, you can always do the counts of 8, 8, 8, 8. When I started out with connecting, it was through like automatic writing, as I said, but I also ask questions in my cards. I love my cards. And that worked for me because I would just pick a card and ask them, do you have a message for me? And can you tell me something about yourself? Now, that could be past lives or something about their character or what they do. So rather than Googling it, I didn't do that. They conveyed the message, and I later checked it and it was kind of correct. So there are so many different ways to do it. Um, it's merely that that we've veiled ourselves, that we've forgotten how to connect. And even if you like to sit in nature just to quieten the mind, that works for a lot of people. Or sit by the beach, or listen to the water, or even listen to meditations that have the sea in the background. It whatever works. I mean, I've sat in circle when I thought I wanted to be a psychic medium. And I kind of trusted what I got because I'm one of these people, I'm one of the crazy ones that I will just get up when I was sitting with the advanced group. The teacher asked, well, does anybody have a message? Would anyone like to start? And I'm like, yeah, I'll start. Because then, I was done with it. But again, you just have to trust what you receive. And I was very correct. I actually had the teacher. And so I gave her the message, and she's like, that's actually for me. And sometimes it's hard to trust because our ego does get in the way, our mind gets in the way. But again, you have to trust, you have to have that faith and that belief. When you have that belief, you'll get there. Does it matter how you start out? Even with channeling, does it matter if you start with two sentences? No, it doesn't. Not at all. But people like to look at other people and think, yeah, but that person is better than I am. And that person is really, really good. It doesn't matter how good they are. Look at yourself. Because even if you do 1 or 2 sentences, several months down the line, if you keep practicing every single day, if you keep at it, the same with meditation practice, if you keep at it, you'll become good at it. But never, never give up, and do not compare yourself with others, because I've done that. I've been there. I've always thought too little of myself
Mm-hmm.
until finally I was just like, no, do you know what? I'm me. I'm okay. And I used to look in the mirror, going back a little bit, look in the mirror, and I thought that I was ugly. For the longest time, because I had
Oh.
so little self-worth. I didn't even value myself. But now I think through all the channeling and so much healing that I've done, and it doesn't mean that I do not go see a healer, because I do get light language healing done. I do, because I like to tune myself up, and sometimes, my energy is also very icky. So I need to
Mm-hmm.
just boom, get that tune up. And it's a continuous journey, but never give up in trying to find your way in the spiritual, trying to develop yourself. Never give up, but just believe. Just believe.
Yeah, I think that's such an important message because first the comparison thing, I personally I like I've been working with spirituality. I also did some energy healing trainings and certifications and things like that. And I have a specific way that I connect with my intuition. I'm more of like a sensation type of person, I just feel something or I just know something, um and sometimes I hear a lot of voices in my head, because my ego just talks a lot, my mind just talks a lot, and also I hear my intuition a lot. But
Yeah.
I remember that for the longest time I didn't know what was what, so it was so hard for me to separate, okay, this is my intuition, this is my higher self,
Mhm.
this is my ego, this is my fear. And I hear it so clearly that I think that I'm making it up, So sometimes I really have to tell myself, like, why would your mind make it? Like, why would your ego make this up? Like telling like something super peaceful, super revealing, super insightful. Why and how would your ego make it up? And if it did make up, like, congratulations, ego. Thank you for making me feel better, But normally it's not the case that much. But I don't know if you had that as well. I think that is a really big part of why people either stop or they'd rather trust someone else instead of trusting themselves. And I think that that is also very dangerous. I don't know if you had that in the beginning as well. Like, even writing, sometimes I've wrote things that I kind of think to myself, like, where is this coming from? But then I'm like, of course, my ego made it up. Why wouldn't it? Because, or I don't know if you have the same.
No, with my channeling, I do not. I don't have that at all. But I remember when I did Reiki, when I taught Reiki, and when I was teaching, I was like, well, am I doing this correct? Why am I not seeing properly? So that's when
Hmm.
I sometimes doubted myself. But with my channeling, not at all. I don't even have that. And
How do
right
you
now,
get there?
trust. It's really about trust. And not just that, like I said, I've done a lot of healing work on myself over the years, and it continues. And it's very, very important to me. It's very important to keep on healing and developing myself. I'm someone that sets the bar very high for myself, and I always have. So my Achilles heel is that I say, but I can do better. I can do better.
Hmm.
And I always set the bar very high for myself, but I've always been like that. But like I said, with channeling, there's no ego there at all. None of that. And the same with light language. I had to learn to trust. And when I decided I wanted to learn light language, it was my guides that pushed me off that cliff. They're like, yeah, now you're ready. And I was like, okay, well, yeah. So I got my friend in because I had another one, Maya Francis. She's amazing. She's a divine frequency alchemist. And she said to me, you're like this car, right? It's in the garage, and there are all the tools. All you need to do is just tune up the car. I'm like, well, that's easier said than done. How the heck am I going to do that? And then several weeks later, I called another friend of mine. She's also a light language healer, Siobhan Purcell, here in the UK. She's amazing, very ethereal, very fairy like, angel like. And I said to her, listen, I really need you to kick me off this cliff now. So we had a face to face workshop, one on one, and she really pushed me. And then all of a sudden, boom, it just started to flow. And I do not have that fear. I don't have these labels slapped upon my mind anymore. So, do I care what people think? I don't. That's what I always was scared that I was going to hurt the other person or they were going to make fun of me because I've been made fun of, especially with doing my angel cards and angel readings. And that pushed me kind of in a corner. I don't have that anymore because I've overcome that now. And it's like, well, if people love light language, then that's great. If it resonates with them, awesome. If it doesn't, that's okay too.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that this part of not being taken seriously, or people making fun of you, making people judging you,
Mhm.
people thinking that you're crazy or something like that, I think that that is also a huge part for anyone who is on this path, wanting to connect to energy, wanting to connect to channeling or something like that. I think that that is a huge fear to overcome, because the
Yes.
mind is really worried about what other people think. And was that a process for you, or you once you got into channeling you had already released a lot of these fears?
No, I hadn't let go of all of my fears yet, so it took a little while. But it's a process. Everything is a process. And it doesn't matter how long it takes you. Honestly, it really doesn't. There's no right or wrong in how you decide to live your life.
Yeah, I love that. And what would be your, like, if you could inspire someone to hop off this podcast and do something now to connect to their intuitions and receive one message, one word, one knowing, something, I don't know, what would be your go-to advice for them, your go-to inspiration?
Listen to David G on YouTube. That will calm your mind. So, whatever is going through your head, that will calm your mind and give you some clarity.
Mm, yeah, I think that's really important, because the intuition lives in the peace, in underneath all of the clouds of the fears of the mind. So it's a
Yes.
whisper. You have to really just settle down, and then you hear it. So yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And where can people find you? How can people work with you? How can people receive healings and channelings with you?
Yeah, so they can find me on my website, powersoulhealing.com. Also on, I don't really use Facebook as much, but I'm on the Universal Light Warriors, and then Instagram, Universal Light Warriors, and then YouTube. I also do my light language transmissions, and I haven't done one for 2 weeks because I've just been too tired, but I will start doing them again next week. And that's under Power Soul Healing.
Okay, perfect. I'll leave all of the links as always on the show notes for this episode. But yeah, Brigitta, thank you so much for doing the work that you do. It's so beautiful. I loved having this conversation with you. Felt very expansive, and you're a very just, you can feel your light emanating from your soul and being. So thank you so much for being on. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Camille.